So we are now moving to an open discussion with you, with the floor, and I would like to invite on the panel so Alberto and Robert as the contract leaders, Claire and Nada as the demonstrators, development leaders, and Carlo for Copernicus, please. Yeah, and by the way, so Leslie, who was already introduced by Alberto earlier, will say you a few words about the poll we're going to set up.
Okay, this is a poll from Slido, and really we just want to get your feedback on the two demonstrators that you've seen. It's really useful to gather your feedback in this interactive session. So what we've got is 3 questions which we'll pose to you, and you can actually interact if you go to www.slido.com.
Yeah.
And you need to put the event code in, which is
We'll show it in a moment.
which will be on screen.
In a moment.
There we are. So if you go to slido.com and if you put the hashtag Q977, you can actually give us your answers in real time. Okay, so the first question, the hashtag is Q977.
Capital Q.
Capital Q. Hashtag Q977. Okay.
So how do we access Wi-Fi in this room?
You should have been given a Wi-Fi code when you registered the little green slip.
The green paper?
Yes. It looks like this.
If you don't have any, I have one for you.
So I'll just give you a few seconds to connect. So the first question, which category is the closest to the work you do? Okay.
Yeah, we can learn them. Photo d'écran. Okay. There's some energy. Producer leaving the room. There was 19, yeah.
No, it's because they were the first ones.
So that's, yes.
They were fast.
Yes, they were fast. I think it's more or less stable
Okay.
now. So what can we? Yeah, what can we say about it?
So, should we move to the next?
Do you want to comment? So what academics?
But we have only 50% answers.
Mm.
There are more or less 90 people in the room.
Okay.
There were 90 at the beginning. Yes, I counted.
So
Okay.
yeah, that
Okay.
gives us
Yeah, maybe they don't.
Okay.
a good picture.
So stop here, and this is the second one.
Yeah. Okay, the second question, what's your level of understanding of climate science? Historical data, seasonal forecast, projections.
It is anonymous, so
We're not going to track the answers to you.
nobody will. Yeah, you can edit your response. Ah, 50-50.
And now we will run a test to verify.
We will verify. We will verify that you understand.
Yeah, if you cheat, the next question is about. We only have another question. Maybe we move to the
Okay,
last question.
yeah. Okay, the last question, what would you like to focus on in this session? So that would be the question and answer session.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty stable. So what we learned, I think Laurent is sharing. What we learned with this survey or a poll is that first of all we can run polls here. That's good. For the first time, so that was a good test. And this was a really simple one. We tried a more difficult one tomorrow. This one is just to break the ice and get to know each other a little bit, even if you can't talk to every one of you at the moment. But I would like to now start the discussion. So I don't know if there are enough microphones to go around. And the idea now, you said that you like to focus mainly on the products, climate and energy products. Of course, you can also explore other areas. It was just to have an idea of the interests here in the room, really. And I'd like to see whether someone would like to kick off with questions of what you see, bearing in mind that you'll see much more tomorrow, but you won't know. You don't know until tomorrow. But let's see some questions, please.
Yes. Please introduce yourself.
Hans-Martin Fussel, European Environment Agency. You already influenced me. Two questions, a very simple one. I mean, I understand that there were two different contracts and that there is some overlap and a lot of good collaboration. But kind of very simply, who would be more happy looking at the ECM demonstrator and who at the Clim for Energy demonstrator? So what are the different user needs or information presented there? It seems there is some overlap at the moment, which is understandable, but just as a very simple answer. And the second one, the Clim for Energy example showed was on runoff and inflow. And obviously you can call this a climate variable, but you can also call it a hydrological variable, and it depends on river routing schemes and agriculture and evapotranspiration and so on. How is it correct that all the information comes from climate models only, and how satisfied were the users for this particular variable where climate models are possibly still limited? Thank you.
I'll try an answer on the two questions. The first question was about the difference between the two contracts. And I guess the best way I can answer that question. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Sorry.
Introduce yourself. I'm Carlo, and Carlo Bontempo is the leader of the C3S sectoral information systems at ECNWF. Thank you.
Next time I introduce myself then. So I think the best way I can answer your question is really looking at the phase in which we are in the C3S. So the two contracts were part of the proof of concept stage, and as the goal of that stage was really to prove the concept, to play with ideas and break it if needed. And in that sense, I don't think you should look for different audiences as such between the two, but just differences. And I think Robert was alluding to it, the fact that, for instance, in the interface, they purposely follow different strategy because this was a way of testing concept and play with it. Going forward, and we are negotiating now the contract for the operational phase, there will be one contract taking care of the energy provision. So that was the first question. The second question was about water variable. So as the two contracts have dealt with energy, we also had two contracts dealing with water. And this was a contract led by SMHI in Sweden and a contract led by CEH in the UK. Also for these two contracts, we are going towards a single contract for the operational phase. And in both cases, this implied the use of an hydrological model and a routing scheme to go from the raw climate variable, atmospheric variable typically, to the terrestrial ECV. Now, as it is at the moment, the water variable you were alluding to are effectively terrestrial essential climate variable, but they are not incorporated through the standard mechanism for essential climate variable. So they are a bit special, but we will treat it as an essential climate variable in the climate data store when, maybe in a couple of years' time.
Yes, maybe to add upon what has been done in Clean for Energy. So there's not, of course, there are two variables for the water. The runoff, which is for the maps, essentially. But if we really want to have something useful for the power plants, we need to have the inflow. The inflow is what is important. It's the coming inflow in the sub-catchment. So we put it as an energy indicator. Because it's been transformed also from I don't think the inflow is an essential climate variable. Yeah, I don't think it is. Maybe runoff is, but not the inflow. So it comes from a hydrological model from our colleagues from SMHI, and we have it for every main rivers essentially.
Who else?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to comment on the target audience, because although we collaborate and we were trying to differentiate, it's also true that the audience, even in the energy sector, is very varied. And so we discussed a lot within our project, but also with C4E, whether we wanted to target policymakers or operational people in the energy sector. I mean, there's a wide variety. What we tended to do in ISEM, I would say, is to try to target more the policymaker, also educational level. I mean, as a target, we always have this in mind that C3S being part of Copernicus and eventually DG GROW, we have one as one of the KPI to create opportunities for commercial products and services. But it's also true that it's a very good opportunity to engage with the wide audience. that can use the data and maybe contribute to help improve the products, because I think we indicated there's a lot of work has been done, but a lot more should be done to improve these products. And so if we can grow a community around this, not just the projects funded by C3S, in my view, would be a good outcome.
I mean, I guess it also relates to the question of scale, and Alberto talked a bit about that at the beginning. So, I mean, we didn't. I mean, it's clear that you wouldn't come to ESAM if you were interested in where to locate a single wind turbine, for example. But I think the value of our data is that it is pan-European, and it's actually consistent between countries and between clusters. And there's the consistency between the temperature data, between the climate data, and the energy data. And it might be that for parts of those data sets, you might be able to access a high resolution data set for one particular part of the kind of mix. But what's important, I think, is that kind of consistency across everything. And I mean, the other thing that you can do, because you can download the data, so you can use that our data, the ESM data, or the Clean for Energy data with your own data sets, with your own models, for example. So I think that brings quite a lot of power.
Hi, I'm Conor Sweeney from UCD in Ireland. Following on from what you were saying, Claire, about using the data in your own models, I'm very interested in ramping and extreme events. I work in wind and PV modelling. So a question I want to ask is, are the data available at resolutions of hourly or higher frequency?
Through the demonstrator itself, the highest temporal resolution we go down to is daily, but some of the underlying gridded data, which is on a half-degree latitude, longitude resolution, is available depending on the variable 3 hourly or 6 hourly through the FTP site.
Yeah, maybe it goes back also to the previous question. Actually, what we in Clean for Energy intended to do is maybe to have something more targeted to the use, to the regional users, and maybe so you will find in the demonstrator the time scales are not exactly the same for each indicator. The regions, the type, sometimes it's gridded, sometimes it's by region, sometimes by country, but it's been constructed from the need from the sector. So in particular, in work with Météo France, the request was clearly 6 hourly data, even hourly if possible. So the best we could do was 3 hourly, and in the demonstrator we have 3 hourly. But again, there was no request for having at spatial scale finer than a region. So it's good to have. So we have the time variability, but we still keep on the regional stuff. However, the raw data are at 12 kilometers in the projection. So they are in the. That it's possible to get them, but it's not presented at because it's huge, essentially.
Is that the raw post-process data, not the
Yeah.
Not the European test?
Yeah.
Eurocordex.
Yeah, we have the Eurocordex data at 3 hourly, and we have also the process data, which are aggregated at regional level. I must say, I'm sorry, I must say one thing. We also have to take into account the fact that it's not because we have more resolved data that we have better data. So that's one thing we have to consider. Certainly, it's important to have. We felt it's important for the question of extreme event and the balance to have hourly or 3-hourly data to get the variability, but there are still these large-scale trends, the biases, large-scale biases that we cannot avoid because they are coming from the global models.
Just to add to what my colleague said, so these are 2 energy contracts of the SIS function. And the function of SIS is, as Jean-Noël pointed out in his introduction, is very much to build upon the climate data store infrastructure. So the data will all be available on the climate data store infrastructure. There will be an API for you to access the data, the raw data, the process data, all that has been produced as part of this contract will be available. And it will be available through a tool that is easy to use for anyone with a bit of expertise. So that was, I mean, it's actually going back to one of the first user consultation, which was one of the strong messages that came out of that interaction was data is king. I remember, you know, and I remember we reacted to it. Yeah, the cartoon was very good. Yeah, well, given that I'm on, thank you. Given on the topic, there was a mention of the data of the contract that Robert has led being available on the SGF node. And the SGF is effectively the standard in the climate community, but it's not necessarily the standard of a broader community of practitioners in the energy sector. So as part of Copernicus Climate Change Service, we procure a node of the SGF. So the data available, so CMAP5 and Eurocordex will all be available through the Climate Data Store as well.
Well, I can ask one myself, and maybe it's for Carlo. As you probably have noticed, and as you know, we had a lot of work to gather energy data within both services, between both contracts, and it was really a pain. And our conclusion and what we saw is that the climate community is much more advanced and organized in data sharing, data formats, and data standards than other sectors, and especially the energy sector. And my question is there any planned activity or planned actions on your side with the application sector, so energy, water, insurance, and so on, to help develop better databases, which at the end will allow us collectively to build improved services, because the data are essential to develop the services?
Thank you. That's a very good question and a very challenging one to answer. As a provider of climate information, our core business is to provide good quality climate information. Also because for climate, we can assure the quality, while for other data set, we can't necessarily do. So this put in a strange position when you look at data sets that are not necessarily climate-based data set. At the same time, something we can definitely do is to document what has been done and to push those requirements, which is a requirement of the community, up the chain and make it visible. That's certainly something we can do, and we, up to a certain extent, we are already doing.
So during some of the presentations, I was furiously going to websites trying to find some of the data and the information. So I think the answer to my question is yes, but is it true that essentially all of the data that was used for these projects are essentially available one way or another to be downloaded?
Essentially, yes. However, there are intermediate calculations that are extremely heavy and that could not be, there's nothing hidden, but it's just too much to handle in terms of the volume. So we prefer to add priorities on certain time scales, certain spatial aggregation or space scales, and we had to do compromises.
Right. So
but the other ones are also available on request.
So I'm pretty confident in the end it's an incredible resource for for targeted decision making, right? So I wouldn't want to probably download all the data, but I may get a question where having that data be available will be quite powerful. And it's incredible.
So generally speaking, all the climate impact indicators are available for all the contracts, not just for the energy one. Now, some of the intermediate data might not be, and it's just a matter of practicality. I mean, for the water contract, the intermediate data sum up to 150 terabyte. That's significant, so it's difficult to manage. Unless there is a strong use case, then we don't make it available. But if you have a strong use case, please let us know, and we can reconsider.
I'm just thinking as a commercial provider, I'm thinking running through my head of the applications that could be created. I don't have anything in particular, but I know there's thousands of applications to be built based on the data that's available.
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate what the others have said, but I mean, there's also one reason why in ESAM we have the variable fact sheets. So we have kind of links to some of the original data sources. So there is that chain of transparency. But Laurent, you might want to say something again about energy data.
It's a mess. No, yeah, it's really difficult, especially in SM, because we wanted to have this pan-European view and approach, and so we needed, as far as possible, to have homogeneous and coherent data for all the countries and for the different variables we addressed. That's to say demand, electricity demand, and wind, solar, and hydropower generation. And fortunately, the NSOE, which is the European Association of Transmission System Operators, released their transparency portal in early 2015, but it was populated only with data from 2015 and onwards. And so we had only 2 years of data, mostly for what we set up. And so it was very challenging to build the models with so few data. But we managed to do it, and we demonstrated, I think, that with data available, we can provide good results. And the good point is that this database has increased since then, because now we have 3 years and almost a half in it. So it's quite almost double compared to what we had at the beginning. And so it's very good to develop new services. And I think for the operational phase of the energy service within SIFT-OS, it will be very useful. But of course, we always need more and more data, because we have so little data in the energy on the energy side, and especially if you want to have coherent data at the European scale, it's very, very difficult. And so I can just mention it's not directly linked to these activities, but within the World Energy and Meteorology Council, we have started an initiative to try to increase the collaboration between the energy sector and the climate community about data sharing, data formats, and so on. And so it both for climate data, but also for energy data. And you can ask us if you want to be involved in that. But really, yeah, energy data and databases, datasets building is really, really important to be able to develop such services. And I know there are a few providers in the room and a few energy companies. If you are interested in sharing this data, do not hesitate, because there's a great need for that.
I like to say that meteorology and climatology is the original big data science, because it started in 1942. Yeah.
Other questions? No? Yeah.
Hi, Christoph Welterser from Energy Supplier, Energy Company. I understand that this is a proof of concept phase only, and that you will or would like to offer a synthesized product in the future. But from user perspective, could you give some comments on the fate of these products in the very near term? Because I picked up a comment in one of your talks that this is the last month of the project, and yeah.
Yes, indeed. This contract are wrapping up, so we are very much towards the end of the contract. And the idea of the operational phase was to start from this proof of concept and build an operational service, so something that can be there in the long term. Now, we'll do our best to manage the transition so that there is no interruption, because we understand there are people who are already using the data set. But our main goal is really to have an operational service up and running in the shortest possible time. So we'll manage the transition, but I cannot guarantee as of today that there won't be any interruption.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we, in the beta test phase, we opened a kind of registration. So we had, I don't remember how many, about
few tens, yeah, maybe 60 beta tests. We have some
like
of the beta testers here.
Yes, so maybe 50. So that's the order of magnitude. So that's not viral, but that's. But we still we keep on having registration requests, and I think it's important that we can still we still have. We know everything is not perfect. Also, we are still correcting errors and problems in the demonstrators. So I think it's important that at least until we have a fully operational system, that we keep on running these, at least maintaining the data set and the demonstrations, maybe at ECMWF or elsewhere. But we need to have a smooth transition.
Yeah, I'll give just to add one little thing to what I said before. If this is critical for you, right? If this is critical that this website are up and running, please let me know, because I'm really keen to do my best to ensure that there is continuity. But I cannot guarantee, given that you will probably need an amendment to the existing contract.
Okay, send the email. Thanks. Now, jokes aside, as Robert said, I think it's important to send the feedback. I mean, even on the ESM website, we have a tab on the side. It's on the right-hand side. There's feedback and FTP. And so it's good to use these forums for airing your interest, but also to send comments, because we can prove to ECMWF then this is written there. And as you said, this is a proof of concept. So it's a proof of concept in two ways. In one way, because we are promoting the data itself, the climate data, the energy data. We've been developing this, and so we cannot prove that they are robust as we would like to be. We've done our best, our very best. All the people that have been involved are at the top of their game, but it's still there are limitations. The other aspect is also that as a proof of concept, it wasn't an operational system. It's a pre-operational, so you don't get the seasonal forecast, for example, updated every month. In fact, you don't at the moment. You don't really get seasonal forecasts as such. Maybe one or two. It's really a proof of concept. So it would be, I think, from what I understand, it would be a big step in that sense, because going to operational means getting the operational products, which is not what is now. So in a way, even if the demonstrators as they are remain frozen for a while, it's not a big change in the current situation. I mean, when the operational system will come, it'll be a big change. That's the main difference, I think.
Maybe to add to the discussion, I think you both mentioned that you're going to continue to log your users and to grow your users until the contract finish. And it's really important, as Carlo said, that you log the requirements, and in particular for the functionalities that people like to have, because this is the goal in the transition phase, is to incorporate all the functionalities, the nice things that you've been doing in the operational climate data store and its toolbox. So it's very important to keep this aspect alive in both of the proof of concepts.
also add that underlying this, I think there is a kind of beauty contest in the sense that we would like to hear from you what you think is good about one demonstrator. I think it was mentioned before. So again, if you use the, I mean, you tell us now, but also send us an email or feedback and say, we would like this feature of this retained in the next phase. We prefer that one from the other one. There's nothing wrong about that. I think it's just it's good to know, and we'll try. You know, until March, we'll do our best to improve. So we have 20 days. So send us the email straight away, and after that, ECMWF will take care of that. So. Throughout the day, tomorrow also, when we look at the demonstrators, try to keep this in mind, and you think this is a very useful feature, I write it down, I put a note, and send the feedback, please. Thanks.
No more questions? Okay. Yeah, I think.
Just a small question.
To Carlo. So, in the climate data store, will there be only the indicators shaped during this proof of concept phase, or there will be new indicators that will be developed?
Yeah, well, there will be new indicators. There will be both. So the information that's been generated in the contract so far, and the information that the new contract, so the one that were on the slide that Jean-Noël presented, will produce. So we have now other 7 contracts that are already delivering towards the operational phase. And on top of those, there will be the energy, water, and insurance in the operational phase, plus a number of others. So all of those will deliver indicators into the climate data store.
Well, thank you. I think it's time to close this this session. And Alberto, and thank you all for your participation. And Alberto and Robert had planned to say a few words to wrap up, so I will give you the microphone now.
I don't know if you wanted to say anything special, just to stay with us for the reception. Anything else?
No, we have, as Robert says, we have also a poster session. Please use it as best as you can. There are going to be not many posters, but use the opportunity to discuss to people there. I actually have 2 posters, so I'll try to be present if I can, but otherwise come and grab me around. And obviously the reception also, please stay around. What time do we finish with the reception?
I think it's quarter to 8.
Quarter
yes.
to 8.
So we have to be away by that time.
And don't remember that we have another exciting, more hands-on program tomorrow. I mean, we more details about the activities and also hands-on activities tomorrow. So yeah. We'll look forward to tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks.